Welcome, Sonic movie fans, to another episode of the Sonic Movie Show, the only show that's about Sonic news, and Sonic movie news, and video game movie reviews. That's what we do here. My name is Ethan, and with me here for two years later, after the events of our previous outing, is Devin.
Sexist. I can't even... Sexist.
Who says that?
I don't remember, but it's in the movie and I wrote it down.
Okay.
It's sexist. That is the quote.
Oh, you know what? It's when Sid in the airship is like, "Shut up, men are talking." And Yuffie's like, sexist. That's right.
Yeah.
All right, we watched a movie called Final Fantasy VII. We watched a movie called Final Fantasy VII Advent Children Complete. Not Advent Children. Watch Advent Children Complete for this episode.
It's all 24 chocolates.
Yep. Well, I mean, we'll get to
25.
the differences between this and the original. But yes, we watched this movie. This is one I've been looking forward to for a long time, just to show it to Devin because he's never seen it. We have both last year did an episode about the Final Fantasy VII Remake game. We reviewed it. That was Devin's first foray into Final Fantasy in general, let alone 7. But I had been a fan forever. And I watched this movie as a child. I eagerly awaited it. Rented it on Blockbuster. Oh my god, so excited. Don't know if I saw Complete or the original, but I was excited. And so we're here to talk about this movie. I don't know where to begin. Do we want to say anything about our experiences beforehand? I know, like I said, you've only played 7 Remake,
I feel like you kind of captured, in a one-sentence way, my Final Fantasy experience and knowledge.
Yeah. But yes, all Final Fantasy games are their own siloed anthology game
I knew
thing. Right. I'm just throwing it out there. And so 7 is a whole saga involving everything that's Final Fantasy 7. This movie takes place 2 years after the ending of Final Fantasy 7, the game. Remake doesn't cover all of that game yet, so there is stuff I filled in for Devin before seeing the movie, like how it ends, and who dies, and all that stuff. So Devin knew all that stuff before going into this movie. But yeah, this movie was part of the compilation of Final Fantasy VII in the early aughts, even before the 10th anniversary of the game, when Square realized, oh my god, this is like our most popular thing ever. We should just make sequels and things to this one particular Final Fantasy. They announced the compilation was going to be a CG movie, a prequel game, a spin-off game, and like a mobile thing. And we're talking pre-smartphone mobile, right? Flip phone era, Japan cell phone games. Compilation, 4 things. Advent Children was AC, Before Crisis BC. Crisis Core CC, Dirge Cerberus DC. Yes, Assassin's Creed. Their whole thing with that, right? That's what they wanted to go about it. And this was like, I don't know if this was the first thing released. I think this was. This movie came out in 2005, direct to DVD. Did not have a theatrical run, so to speak. So it doesn't have a box office. So if you were to guess, the answer is 0. And that it came out.
That's a fat L.
Yes, well, I mean, I don't think it was ever designed to come out to theaters. It might have been like, you know how like when you go to see a movie at like a Regal theater or something, it's like, oh, I think Fathom Events presents this.
Yeah.
Maybe something like that happened where
on
like
a
the
Thursday
nerds got to
at
see
4 o'clock. It's always at a weird
Right.
time when like,
Yeah.
is anyone even free to go see this?
Or even like, okay, it feels like it was something that's like, oh, what's going on right at this moment? Sure, let's
Next
go
Tuesday
check it out
at 9:30 a.m.
Right, when the
This
tickets
3-year-old
are $5.
anime film.
Yeah. And this is an anime film as fuck. I mean, obviously the games are anime in a sense, but like it's a turn-based game. Your action is turn-based. Here, it's realized and full CG anime nonsense. And I will say this, because I want to hear your opinions as well. This movie visually holds up very well in terms of like the animation. The characters look good. I don't think they look amazing, but like they don't look dated.
When did this movie come out again? Like what?
2005.
Okay.
So this is a standard definition film that just got up-resed. We watched the recent 4K Ultra HD Blu-ray release that I pre-ordered, that Amazon Complete, Amazon, I remember, sent an email being like, "Hey, just to let you know, this is not the PS5 game that's also coming out the same week or something like that." We watched that Blu-ray version for this episode.
Thanks for letting me know, Jeff.
Yep. So it is supposed to be. I don't know what that reference is. This is supposed to be.
Bezos.
Oh yes, thank you, Jeff Bezos. This was supposed to be 4K, Ultra HD. Very clearly see some textures or some elements that they could not up-res further, like lots of hair wasn't able to be. But for overall, I feel like this movie does look visually good. Color palette aside, the characters look decent. I don't know. What is your thoughts about like the whole visuals?
Visuals? At moments I thought it looked good. Then there was moments when I'm like, this looks dated. I think at one point you said this looks like a PS3 game, which was exactly on my mind as you were saying it. I was like, yeah, this feels like a cutscene in a PS3 game.
Yeah. There are like a couple like instances where it's like we're in a new scene, location has changed, we're now looking at city stuff, and then the camera moves to reveal our characters, they walk into frame or something like that. And those instances right there, that's where I was like, this feels like a video game cutscene from 2009 or something like that.
Yeah, and I think the camera work was video game-esque to a certain extent. Not all the time, but majority of the time, I would say. So I think that didn't necessarily, I don't want to say help or make it bad.
Guess who directed and produced this? The guys that made the games. This is a Tetsuya Nomura directed movie. The man directs video game cutscenes, so of course this is video game cutscene the movie in that sense, right? Producer Kitase, like written by Nojima, he wrote the games. Nojima and Nomura wrote VII Remake. Like, these are just the Final Fantasy VII guys making a movie. So it definitely feels a lot like that. And I bet watching this in 2005, like if you got the DVD like right away and watched it, you're like, oh my god, I want games to look like this. And now we're at a point where, Final Fantasy VII Remake comes out and looks way better than this movie.
I was going to say the close-ups of the character, were decent. I want to say it was like, holy shit, that's amazing, because obviously it's a dated film. But then I'm like, man, it makes you appreciate what the game... I already did that's one of my positives of Final Fantasy VII Remake is like when it is close-ups and whatnot, they do make the characters look really, really gorgeous. And this has it's like if you you're trying to export in Premiere and you're like the file size is too big, you had to knock it down a little bit. That's kind of how it felt to me.
Okay, sometimes I see that. I feel like the color palette doesn't help either. There's
just gray, black.
It's just lots of grays, blacks, browns, dark greens, dark blues, dark reds. It doesn't help too that our main cast now wears black leather. Cloud's wearing black leather. Tifa. I mean, we're gonna talk about the plot, but their outfits match the plot, which is just sad boy and his trying to be nice sad girlfriend adopt a bunch of kids, and they all have COVID. Essentially.
Basically,
but
the
color palette doesn't really make the film seem vibrant and adventurous. It does have a sense of just dreary type of look to it. And I also feel too, because this film requires you to know what happened in the game, just to understand who these people are, because they're not introduced to people that don't know. You know what I mean? It almost kind of hurts. This is just some weird abstract anime movie if you didn't see it. Wow, this is just a sad,
I don't know if, one, I would have any interest in watching this if I didn't play the game.
And we weren't doing a bunch of video
We've done
game
a review on
reviews.
Spirits Within, or at least Spirits Within, fuck that movie, but at least I didn't have to know anything going into that. It was just like you said, Final Fantasy, the name is just an umbrella of just its own standalone things, but they're kind of loosely
thematically tied, if anything.
Yeah, there's some creatures that are in each one that are similar or whatnot, or they all have big blades or something, that kind of stuff. But no, yeah, I agree that I don't know how enjoyable this movie would be if you don't know. I don't know if you would really get it. There's moments when I didn't even get it, and I played the game. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
Sometimes
yeah.
that's the case with anime too. That like sometimes there's this shit happens and you have to kind of just roll with it.
One thing that this movie does is definitely a Nomura thing, and even I guess Nojima is tied to that because him and Nomura are often a pair, especially with Kingdom Hearts and shit, of like the flashbacks and like the jumping around in time, not in terms of what the characters are doing, but just like our perspective throughout this linear story is for some reason jumping to different points. I mean, this movie opens up with a scene that happens later in the movie. And then, no. This movie opens up with the ending of Final Fantasy VII. After the whole game ends, they show a scene. It says 500 years later. Red 13, the fire dog guy from Final Fantasy VII, who lives for like almost forever, and his 2 kids or whatever, running through a field. They see a ruined Midgar, and there are no people. There's no humanity. That game ends in a ambiguous way of like, did the planet save itself in a way that also killed everyone, and there are no people? Because that's kind of even what the directors at the time hinted at. Like, yes, this is a world devoid of humans. It shows that again in a re-CG'd version for the movie. Then it says 498 years earlier. And we get a scene that is in this movie.
And imagine...
And then it says 2 weeks earlier.
And you're like, what the fuck? Because that's a random time jump.
Right. And it says 2 weeks earlier. And now the movie begins. And like what they even show in that in-between thing with Rufus Shinra in the wheelchair and Kadaj isn't even important. That's just classic anime bullshit of like, this seems super cool and interesting. You're going to see why. And I'm going to forget until I see them again at the building. I'm like, oh yeah, I think this is that scene. I actually don't even know if that is the scene or not. I'm pretty sure it feels like
there was some jumping around that had me like wait, wasn't Cloud just there?
Yeah.
Why is he going here?
There's a part.
Is he saving the children now, or is he fighting the children? Is he going to the children? I don't know.
Why are they back in the bedroom? Oh wait, this is still that earlier scene.
Was this all a dream?
Exactly. There are 2 versions of this film. There's the original version, and then there is Advent Children Complete. Advent Children Complete adds 26 minutes of footage.
Shit. Now that's a director's cut.
Honestly, yes. There's more violence in a lot of the fight scenes.
Good.
There is more like dirt and grime added to the character models as they get, including the iconic scene, the iconic shot of Sephiroth impaling Cloud with the sword. That is only incomplete. That got added in. So the fight scene with Sephiroth is like extended by several minutes for stuff like that, which is interesting. Thousands of scenes got retouched. More backstory for Denzel, the sad kid that sad boy Cloud has adopted or something. Whatever. Weird things.
Same
like
kid who like got fucking distracted during like 9/11
I'm gonna go here
and
then
just
whatever.
No, the
Kid
towers
sucks.
are falling. Is that a fucking turtle in the fucking gutter?
Here's we're gonna try to recap this movie, but here's my thing about the characterization of new characters for this movie, right? Because this is a sequel, so you're already assumed to have come in with knowing that Cloud goes through a character arc. He started off very brash and full of shit and cocky, and he thought he was the best. Then he goes through a breakdown when he realizes that his story doesn't line up with what he remembers. He's not who he was. He blames himself for Aerith dying because he should have been able to save her and he didn't. But then Tifa helps him, and he goes through like a metamorphosis in his mind, so to speak, and comes out the other end stronger than before, and he's happy. And he's a good person, and he wants to save the world, not because he can look cool, but because it's worth saving, and he was willing to die to do that, right? He goes through that whole character arc. Tifa goes through a somewhat of a character arc. Barrett goes through a big character arc, right? All these people go through character arcs. We're at a part now where they're like, yeah, but Cloud was cooler to teens when he was sad. Tifa is cooler to those boy teens when she is a kind of clingy girlfriend that's interested in him just because it's cool. Sad. Right. Mm-hmm. Like he pushes everyone away.
You will get tons of pussy if you're sad and miserable.
Now, granted, the other cast members of Seven aren't really in this movie. They come in for a fight scene or two. I'm actually surprised that Vincent isn't a sad boy. He's actually like a helpful kind of person. He would end up starring in a game. Oh, it's all about him, where he is a anti-hero for no reason dickhead. This movie doesn't characterize him as such. He's actually helpful and kind of funny. Where can I get a phone is the first thing he says when he pops up in the fight scene to Tifa, because he realized people should have phones, I guess. Because I think that's kind of funny, right? But all these characters already had an arc, to an extent. All right, fine. But the new characters, these are new people. The Advent children, Kadaj, Laz, and Yazo, I think is their name.
Don't remember them.
I actually don't remember which is which. Whoever the main one...
The one hair, he was like the main one.
The guy that had a sword that was actually two swords, single-handed, I think his name was Kadaj. Final Fantasy VII fans are probably going to be upset by not knowing which of these silver-haired fucks. Don't cry. I don't give a fuck. These are bad characters. And they're not interesting, even as villains, because they don't have a plot. They're trying to find the head. Yeah.
Like, it's not like Cloud ever mentioned them, or like we're supposed to.
Well, they didn't exist before. I think the idea is that, Sephiroth and therefore Jenova are dead and gone, but they live in the life stream, just like everyone else. When they die, they return to the planet. So the mimetic legacy lingers through, and then something like that. That's how Sephiroth's able to come back, because there's a bit of him in Kadaj, and that's how he comes back through that. It is actually Sephiroth somehow, right? So they just appeared 2 years later, so to speak, but whatever. Their plot is they just want the head so that they can do something, and they don't even know what it is for. They just know that Jenova, mother, so to speak, the alien thing, would want it. And the idea is simply just Sephiroth actually wants it to destroy the planet anyway. Whatever, right? Okay, sure. But then we have like this Denzel kid. And I get it. The idea of that character is that he's sad and broken. And maybe it's just because he's sick, right? And his parents are dead. And they briefly kind of show that it was almost kind of Cloud and Barrett and Tifa's fault.
Yeah, I feel like that was... I don't know if that
they
was... They
should have brought that up. Because it was like, hey, if you didn't... There's a flashback where it shows like a picture frame, like his parents are dead. He's an orphan. And then like he gets a flashback of the news footage of what you assume is where the parents died. And it was the bombing from the reactor from the beginning of the game. So it's like, oh, Cloud killed his parents. Does he even know that? Whatever. I guess it doesn't matter because they don't even actually say it.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. But he's a sad kid, and he has to go through some character arc. But in order to make him interesting, you have to make him likable. And he doesn't do anything. He just doesn't.
Kid characters, I feel like, are really hard to like make interesting.
You got to make them funny or really cute. Or just like some jerk attacks them, so you feel bad for them. But this kid doesn't do anything.
You need to like pull on my like parental heartstrings a little bit to make me like be like, hey, that can't happen. That shouldn't happen to this kid. That's fucked up.
There is like a random girl whose brother dies of the geostigma, the COVID of this movie, that almost seems a bit more interesting than him, just because she like has emotions a little bit briefly. Also, Marlene is in this movie, and she's not interesting at all. Barrett's daughter, right? Which, I don't know why it was Barrett. Also, Barrett was oil fracking. Dude's a fucking eco-terrorist. Why is he oil fracking?
Yeah, it's one thing if you're like...
The parallels are obvious in the game. Why do they decide, oh yeah, we need energy anyway,
it's one thing if the
frack.
character was like, yeah, I care about the environment, like, and maybe I do something with charity to, like, help... But like I also need to pay the bills, so I work at an oil company. That's one thing. He's a eco-terrorist. He is
killed
radicalized.
People.
He's radical. He's already like committed to the cause.
Yeah.
Bro ain't working at no oil company. He burning that shit down. Unless he's like trying to get in, like take that shit down. Which that would have been cool. He's like, yeah, I'm sold this oil factory. They have no idea what I'm gonna do. Something like that. That would have been cool. But no, he's like, yep, I'm just working my 9 to 5.
Even something like there's still corruption. It wasn't just Shinra. There's corruption all around. We got to make sure you know what I mean? Something like that. Maybe he doesn't have to be a terrorist to do it. He can still stop, oil fracking In any case, interesting note.
You know who else
But
can stop fracking, right?
Exactly. Man has a fucking gun for an arm. You know? Yeah, so like we have our main cast. Really, it is Cloud, Tifa, Marlene, and Denzel. And then our villains, Kadaj, Laz, and Yazo. They are our cast. Oh, and Rufus, Shinra, and the Turks, including Reno and Rude. Song and Elena show up briefly at the end because they're presumed to be dead from Kadaj apparently kills them, but I guess not because they wanted to make more movies and stuff and games in this world after this movie. For some reason, they just stopped. I don't really know the full story about that, but they don't want to kill these characters because they want to keep putting them in stuff, obviously. That's mainly our cast. Cloud, Tifa still runs the bar, but it's in a new spot, obviously, because they're not in Midgar anymore. They're in a town right next to Midgar that got built. Okay. Tifa still runs Seventh Heaven, the bar. Cloud does a delivery service on his motorcycle because they're like, oh yeah, you know what was really cool when he rode the motorcycle in that mini game.
So now we were joking while we were watching it that he's basically stunting on everyone because everyone's like poor and shit, and he comes in this nice matted black with like
giant motorcycle
with glossy gold trims on it with fucking swords and shit. It's basically a Rolls Royce motorcycle he driving in here with, and he's like, yeah, man, doesn't it suck, man? Yeah, I'm trying to do my best. Like, bro, it looks like you're spending money on things you shouldn't be spending money on. I'm gonna call him out. Cloud's a faker, dude. He's all for the clout. He's still for the clout.
It's also confusing too. A part of that, he rolls up when we were saying that he rolls up to the church from Final Fantasy VII, which is in Midgar. Not in Edge City, unless they moved it, which I doubt.
That'd be
so
funny.
Parts of this movie takes place in Midgar, which means there's still people poor and dying in Midgar. I thought the whole idea was that, what's his name, Reeve. You didn't really, he is in 7 Remake. He is on the board of directors at Shinra. He's the one guy that's like, can we not please kill people? He's the really handsome guy with the mustache. He is actually one of the party members in Final Fantasy VII. We won't go into it, but he becomes like trying to rebuild like the people. Like he was always one of the good guys. He's the good guy of the bad guys type of thing, and he's now one of the good guys. So I don't know if he's like mayor or anything like that. I don't remember. But that's kind of his role. So like he's like rebuilding, and all that kind of stuff. So I'm like, why? I just realizing now, like, why are there still like people in like the slums when there were still bad people here? Can't we move? Whatever. But yeah, Cloud, and obviously everyone has new outfits so that they can sell action figures. Cloud has a new sword. Story reasons, he feels like he let Zack down, so he's going to prop the sword up and put it somewhere. So he needs a new sword. He needs like 7 new swords that all form into one giant sword for the action figure, which I'm sure is extremely expensive, and also does kind of look cool to like.
Yeah, I'm calling him out, dude. I'm putting Cloud on blast. He's fucking.
Where'd he get that money?
Exactly, dude's like, oh, we need to help the local community. I'm gonna keep my millions in my Switzerland.
But I'm also gonna be a
account.
delivery boy.
Yeah, something's not adding up. I think he doing some on the side, and he keeping on the down low. He's a
mercenary, true and true, right?
He still wants that. He wants that local clout. He wants that, like, wow, he's such a hero. But he probably hanging with the baddies.
Probably, and
him and Sephiroth at the end of the day, they're probably still chilling at they're chilling at some gentleman's club. They're like, dude, we fucking fooled them. Now we both get the rewards.
Tifa's characterization is mostly boring. She is just the dotting girlfriend, which is lame. Written by people that didn't seem to know what else to do with her. Her story's done, I guess. Whatever. But Cloud needs to still be sad. But then we have Reno and Rude, the Turks. And this is my one giant critique with like the franchise of Final Fantasy VII. Reno and Rude are the ones that actively did the action of dropping the plate, killing tens of thousands of people. They don't get to be redeemed no matter how hard they try. You killed tens of thousands of people. Easy simile or whatever of this is Darth Vader. he didn't blow up the planet, but still he's responsible for probably millions of deaths. He can be redeemed to the one person that matters, but he needs to die. He can't just waltz back in with the crew at the end and be like, I'm a good guy now. The Turks and Rufus Shinra are still bad guys in that sense. And like the series tries to be like, yep, we're good guys, and yep, we're gonna, like, I'm sorry, Reno, just because you're hot and like there's a giant amount of fan base, and I know because I followed some on Twitter that like you and just, you know what I mean, like you're popular in that sense to the fans, but you can't be redeemed like that in this movie. Like, Cloud should not be, and granted, he doesn't like these people, but he should be like, you deserve to die or something. You know, he shouldn't be chill with them existing around
also,
him.
wasn't their whole like thing that they mentioned early on in the film was that is that they're like, oh, I think we can rebuild it, like the company. I'm like, why? You don't owe anything to the company. Why do you care?
The company literally like is the cause of all of these problems.
But I'm like, the more I thought about it, I'm like, actually, that's realistic. If fucking like Amazon, you know, let's say
Name recognition.
Amazon, like fucking like somehow like we take it down, right? Because we find like, well, they are doing dumb like shitty shit to the planet, but like let's say we take them down, right? Revolution, whatever. Mm-hmm. There's definitely gonna be people who be like, but we gotta bring back that service, though. Am I right? And be like,
we gotta rebuild.
Yeah, yeah. So it's weirdly believable, I guess.
Yeah,
but yeah, you're right though. They're like, who, like, why should I? They are cool. Like, I thought they were cool in the movie. I wanted to kick their ass in the game because fuck them. Yeah, but like, or sometimes even, like, they felt like they were in the way when I was about to get to the other baddies. Like, they appeared. I'm like, all right, let's handle y'all.
7 Remake also goes to a degree to kind of show that Reno and Rude in particular kind of like, well, we don't really have to do this. They're kind of, they try a little bit that the original game doesn't do.
Team Rocket, kind of,
in a sense. And in the original 7, after the Midgar stuff, they do pop up along with Song and Elena, who is a new recruit, as a Team Rocket kind of thing every now and then to bring trouble to whatever local scenario Cloud and crew happen to stumble upon, right? Rufus Shinra dies in 7 late in the game. He blows up in Midgar. So he's alive, but he's all beat up. He's sitting in a chair. He's got this weird robe thing that's like kind of
trying to be cool, but I'm like, bro, you're just wearing a cloth.
Mysterious.
On your
it's
head.
Just so you can have the reveal of like, no, I'm fine at the end anyway.
You have a bed sheet over you, dude. Like
basically. But I was staring at the stitching of it because the materials. I was kind of fascinated by the materials for the clothing in this game.
They were weirdly detailed,
movie.
More than like the skin.
Yeah, very like right, like threads and shit. I was looking at the threads on this weird shawl he had on, and it's like almost like, okay, so picture a hoodie, right? And now offset that hoodie so that like turn it a bit. So that the whole, like where the hole ends and the hoodie material begins, starts to go down half of your face. You're right, like you turned your head in the hoodie.
Yeah.
And then now also take that and rotate it 28 degrees, either way. Now have the threads go perfectly horizontal. It was like made to be asymmetrical and weird, is my point. He wasn't wearing it weird. It was made that way, which is, I was staring at him like, this is so weird. In any case, cool, he's back. They're trying to rebuild Shinra, but the Advent children are here, and that's a problem, and it's a mutual problem. So, Cloud, can you take care of them? And he's like, I already did it. One of the only funny parts in this movie, by the way, is when Cloud walks into that building, and Reno attacks him in quotes, but it's kind of just like maybe showing up the boys kind of a thing. And Cloud just opens the door and he stumbles out, and Cloud closes it and immediately locks it. Like, he tries to open the door back up, he just closes it, locks it. That's the only part I'm like, that's actually legit funny, that idea. But they're doing that. Also, the Advent Children, I'm just going to call them that, Kadaj and the Advent Children, a shitty band name, attack Cloud for some reason. But they chase him on the motorcycles because they think he has Genova, their mother. And then they also attack Rufus Shinra, because he has mother. He doesn't. He's really manipulative, that Rufus. There's just lots of that stuff. We get flashbacks about Denzel. Cloud sees flashbacks about Zack and about Aerith. Marlene also narrates
is in there, I think, at one point. I don't
Marlene
remember.
very briefly recaps the entire 90-hour game.
Yeah, I think I'm just gonna replay that, and then I'll be like, yeah, I played
it. Yeah, stuff happens. This is honestly, it's a movie where stuff happens, and then you get cool action scenes.
Yeah, I honestly I didn't care too much about the plot or what was really happening. There was some cool monsters. The anime fights were super anime fights, like Dragon Ball Z level, where like you can't hit anybody. Like no one's really doing any damage. It's more of just like hopefully I can get a power up at some point,
or just
like,
outlasting.
Yeah.
It's just eventually you will get the blow.
And then when you do get stabbed, it doesn't kill you.
Cloud gets stabbed a whole bunch at the end, which I guess was only in the complete because it ends with him being impaled.
Maybe that's why they cut it. They're like, this looks cool, but like, how?
See, I'm wondering if I think it might have been added, not cut. I think it might be they literally added stuff.
Oh,
That's
I feel like to make us aware that like you can live from being stabbed. Like there's some magic shit or something going on. I wish
he's a super soldier.
I wish he stabbed Sephiroth or something. You know what I mean? Like I feel like like in Dragon Ball Z, like they'll blast holes through each other. You know what I mean? And then be like, I'm good though. I need to take a quick rest and I'm good. Like I wish there was some of that maybe because it did feel like out of nowhere.
Cloud also does get shot at the end though, and that is like ow. So like because it is the kind of anime thing where like people are deflecting gunfire. You know what I mean? Even in the games. What I was going to say
is that they have these sword fights and they all know each other's moves or something, and if everything's blocked pretty much. So like when you stab someone, you'd think that would be like that's it.
Yeah.
And like no, he's like, oh, I'm bleeding, but I'm not.
Strength of will. I guess.
Yeah. Which I'm fine with. I get it. Like I'm with the anime. Like shit don't make no sense. People are there's a lack of gravity quite often in these fights.
Yeah. It's
so,
just
like whatever. Like
it's awesome though. Honestly, I just rolled down like this is a bunch of awesome fight scenes. That's it. Like this movie is just a bunch of awesome fight scenes. That's my takeaway.
But yeah, I would say the plot itself though, like I could care really less. No one really nothing really crazy happens where I'm like, wow, like that really makes me appreciate Final Fantasy VII Remake. You know what I mean? Like I feel like it's kind of just. The story was over and we're just ad-libbing some shit because
this isn't attacked on.
You know what I mean?
Agreed.
I
And
thought
a lot of people
cool, basilisk or whatever the fuck it was, the winged monster from Bayonetta or whatever. It was cool.
Oh, that was a new edition of Bahamut. So like there's Bahamut's a classic Final Fantasy summon, right? Along with like Ifrit and Shiva and all those. Well, you summon some in Final Fantasy VII Remake. Bahamut you can also get in that game too. In the original Final Fantasy VII, there's like 3 different Bahamuts. It's Bahamut, Neo Bahamut, and Bahamut Type 0, and they're all different giant dragon things.
Oh, I mean, I thought it was cool looking.
And then this is a new one.
Like I said Bayonetta as a joke because it reminded me of like that kind of aesthetic.
I could see kind of somewhat angelic in some nature.
Yeah.
And it
like its like teeth. It had like human teeth. Because you think like these dragons or whatever, like they would have carnivore teeth, like fucking tigers or dinosaurs. Like nope, I have human teeth. I eat vegetables, but I'm big and I'm scary, which makes me more scared. I'm like you're gonna grind me up. You're not gonna cut me up. You're gonna grind me up. I always like that. If you give your monster human teeth, it makes it scarier for some reason.
At one point, the Advent children take all the regular children that have geostigma, which I guess we should also say what that is, and they brainwash them or control them or whatever, and then they stand around. Geoligma. Essentially, what people assume is happening is that the planet is still upset that it was attacked in the first place and is punishing, almost like in a religious way, like a sin kind of thing.
Yeah, like
punishing people by giving them geostigma.
When Black Plague was like at its peak, I think a lot of Catholic folk thought it was like, this is a rapture almost. This is part of God's, will to purge the earth of sin, or it was the Jews, one of the two.
Either explanation suits whatever power-hungry person at the time desires, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, geostigma is a thing, and it's like a goopy, icky, gross thing. We joked and said, "Oh yeah, this is COVID." Even someone says, "Why can't you people stay inside?" And like, man's completely right. Stay inside. Of course, these are poor orphans that have no inside to go to. But yeah, what if COVID was looking like that? Everyone would be fucking masked up, and everyone would have gotten the vaccine, and we've all would have. If it was a physical thing you could have seen on someone,
the world would be much more fucked if it was something physical, for sure. I think.
And it's this goopy, greenish, gross shit. But it's actually not that. It's a bit of the. It's actually a bit of Genova cells or whatever. Genova, just like Sephiroth, when they died, they also returned to the planet. Some of that stuff ekes back into people. This idea of Genova wants to reform. So that's why they're bringing all the people with Geostigma together so they can just reform Genova. Doesn't quite work out, however, and all that stuff. Also, I want to point out the cell phone. Everyone in this movie has the same branded cell phone. They sold this cell phone. Panasonic made this cell phone. Was a fashion item, this cell phone. Even in the PS2 game, Dirge of Cerberus, starring Vincent, the vampire-like red cape guy with the gold gun and all that.
He was the coolest guy, by the way. I know nothing about him, but he was cooler.
He is cool.
Yeah.
He's also... he was in love with Sephiroth's mom. His actual
now that
real
is savage.
Birth.
He's a fucking vampire. He looks cool, and he's banging Sephiroth's mom.
Oh, he never could.
Oh,
he can never. He can never truly be with Lucrezia. Unfortunately, Hojo, the creepy scientist, gets on with her Lucrezia. They are technically the biological parents of Sephiroth, and Genova is the true like almost like Lucrezia is, I think, supposed to just have been like his womb carrier type of mother.
Damn,
in a sense.
What could have been, you know?
I know. And Vincent is just, he's just saddened by the fact that he couldn't save her, couldn't stop it. So he seals himself in a cave. You literally, well, I guess I'm not, obviously spoilers for this movie in Final Fantasy VII. We're half an hour in, we're almost 40 minutes in. It's too late to warn for spoilers. You find Vincent in the most badass way in the game. You go to a mansion as part of the story, but then side quest you can go back and find a couple things, find a cool materia for a summon, solve a couple puzzles for cool shit. In the basement, in a random room, there's a coffin. And if you open it up, Vincent comes out. And it says, "Go away, I'm sleeping." And then the coffin closes. And you have to do a couple things and keep talking to him. And he's like, "Fine, I'll join you." That's how you get him. He's an optional character in the game. Obviously, they'll make him mandatory to get in whatever sequel the remake is. But he's a cool guy.
I'm always down for vampires.
Yeah, he's not actually a vampire, but he is
if you're sleeping in a coffin,
one. Right,
you can be a vampire without being the supernatural vampire. You can it's like a way of life. You know what I mean? It's like being a goth.
It's a way of life for him. He's really old. He's cursed. Yeah, so that stuff's going on. Oh yeah, that cell phone. Yep, everyone's got the cell phone. Cloud never answers the phone. He always just gets the voicemails.
He's one of those people. He's like,
yep.
It's like when the wife buys the husband the phone, but then the husband never answers, and then the wife, when he gets home, it's like, "Why don't you never pick up? What's the point of having a cell phone if you never pick up?" Classic. That's exactly how it happens when.
But no one ever yells at Cloud.
I'm telling you, he needs to be knocked down a little bit.
He needs to be bitch slapped. Tifa needs to honestly punch him in the face. Honestly,
just a full punch,
man the fuck up,
Don't even
Cloud.
hold that. Don't even hold it. Don't
2
even hold
years
it back.
ago, you were a happy boy. You held hands with me on the airship. The fuck, Cloud. Also,
bro, you have all the fucking swords in the world. You have a fucking nice ass bike. Look around you, bro.
He's 23 in this movie because he's 21 in the game. Aerith is 20 in the game. She's 22 in this movie. Y'all, chill. You got your whole life ahead of you. I get it. Cloud has geostigma, and he hides this by wearing one sleeve on that arm and not on the other. Fashion. But, I get it. You're sad because you're probably thinking you're going to die. But,
We sound so terrible, by the way. We're obviously this is for a joke. But we just sound so terrible. We're just stop being sad. I mean, just stop. It's that easy.
Because that's the thing, is he shouldn't be sad. He went through a whole character arc. But, he's got COVID and he's dying. And Tifa, oh my god, she used to be hotter, but now she's 22. Like, it's one of that kind of bullshit.
She's wearing more clothing, and I don't appreciate that.
She wears full leather. What I love, too, is in Kingdom Hearts 2, which came out the same year that this movie came out, Cloud, Tifa, and Sephiroth are in the game, and Cloud and Tifa wear their outfits from this movie. It's cool. Tifa's trying to find Cloud.
Wasn't everyone in those fucking games wear, like, goth shit?
Well, yeah, they straight up... The black leather cloak stuff was in the original Kingdom Hearts as a secret boss. And then, like, there was like a spin-off game in between Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2 that came out before this movie that had the villains wore full black leather. Looks a lot like what Kadaj, Laz, and Yaza wore, but if you had a hood and gloves and boots and like full on like that, so you couldn't see who it was, like a shadow. Nomura designs black leather and zippers and fucking tassels and belts. Those are the things he does. Nowadays, he's all about capris for men, boots, fingerless gloves, and like almost like checkered or plaid shirts with then a jacket that's kind of just a short sleeve, just also kind of shirt jacket, and then maybe something else. Maybe a scarf, because main character Final Fantasy 15 looks like that. He redesigned Riku, one of my favorite characters of Kingdom Hearts, to just look like that. And Final Fantasy 7 Remake adds a new character named Leslie, who's he has like a visor, and he's, remember the Don Corneo? He's like the actual guy that's like running the thing. Is this Leslie kid? That's Nomura's current character design, but previously in the early 2000s it was the black leather with the giant silver zipper down the middle. Everyone's wearing that in this fucking movie, and it's just the way it is. I don't know, what do you have anything you want to mention about this movie? We're hopping around. I don't care about recapping it. He saves the day at the end. Sephiroth's cool as fuck. I'm very biased because Sephiroth is cool as fuck. It's a great fight scene between the two of them. And it just ends in a very boring way. Sephiroth's plan was just rot the planet with the geostigma stuff.
Because I'm mad.
Well, because what I do think was
He's
cool...
like the devil.
In a sense. What was cool about Seven's story and all that is, you know, the planet is alive in that sense, yada yada. A meteor hits the planet with an alien, Genova, which wants to basically just travel the cosmos and destroy planet by planet. And yada yada. But, like, we never learn anything beyond the planet. We don't know about any other life, or we don't know. They don't give a race for what Genova is. There's nothing. It is all just the effects of what happened after the meteor crashed. Genova fell, that kind of stuff. And Sephiroth was made from her cells, and he was a good guy. He was a war hero. Realized he was a monster, went crazy, now wants to actually do the thing Genova wanted to do, right? And that's what this is about. So I always thought was cool is that, like, they didn't do like for the sequel or the movie, we're going to expand the universe. Now there's this other planet and blah, 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 right? They didn't do anything like that, which I think is very cool. You keep the scope about our planet and our characters here, because that's all that actually matters. Don't go crazy. But this movie's plot opens with he just wants to do it this other way. And then he dies in a way that they can just bring him back again, even to potentially just do the same thing again.
Yeah.
Because how did this get resolved? Just the planet just cures him. Aerith in the planet's life stream is like, oh yeah, I can help. Cloud and company didn't do anything, right?
Why didn't you help earlier, bro?
Exactly. What the fuck? You died, so you couldn't even help us out before. And now you're going to wait?
You just inconvenienced me so
I know.
fucking much. It's so hard being Cloud, dude.
My name's Cloud because I have my head in the clouds. And my spiky hair will pierce them.
You should call him Sand because he was head in the sand, bro.
Yeah. Or Mud because he's a stick in the... So, yeah.
That's what they should do for the rest of the Final Fantasy VII game. Just literally just play on that, like... Those words of not advice, but like descriptions.
Well, for Final Fantasy 13, the main character, an ex-soldier with a prickly attitude that opens the game riding a train with a black character that uses guns. Her name is Lightning. She is literally meant to be a female Cloud, essentially. They just rewrote the idea. Was anyone else mean, Titus, I guess, in Final Fantasy X is water. I don't know. They like their names, right? I like the movie, though, and for terms of like the fight scenes and seeing the characters.
Yeah, the fight scenes were cool, but it was more at the end. Well, I mean, there was some here and there, but sometimes it felt a little too much. It has like
Tifa got her head smashed by a church pew.
Yeah, that one was ridiculous. That one was just like, I'm like, okay, sure. No, I had the like issue that I have with like some of Zack Snyder's like Superman action shots where like there's a lot of crash zooms out, a lot of cuts, and sometimes it gets a little too much that I'm not getting nauseous, but just like I'm like, okay, what's like I can't process.
It's almost overwhelming.
I'm like, what just happened? It's not as bad as like I think Man of Steel is at moments, but I thought they were good. I thought it was that at least makes the movie
it
watchable.
Satisfied me.
Yeah.
And you're right. Right. It makes it it's because it almost feels like irrelevant. Like what the fuck was it all for?
I just feel like the bad guy is back. Okay,
the problem you created
back
in this
the bottle.
Exactly. The weird problem you created in this movie, Geostigma, you solve in just deciding you just want it gone. You decide you wanted it there, writers, and now you decide you wanted it gone. That's the plot. And then, like, some dudes want to become Sephiroth, and they don't know why, and that makes them sad, too. Everyone's sad.
World sucks.
And then 15 years later, they come out with Final Fantasy VII Remake, where they're like, hey, let's make this a sequel to this movie, in a sense, because the idea is that Sephiroth, at the end of this movie, at some point later, realizes that there's fate and all that shit, and now the game begins. Now he went back in time, which I think is much cooler than, like, a much cooler idea for a sequel than this movie. Think about it. Take this movie out of consideration, and it's just the original, and then they decide to remake it. And the idea is like, oh, he knew he lost, and somehow he's able to come back in time. It's a great idea for a sequel. It's more interesting than this movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, this movie was
comparing this to Final Fantasy Spirits Within, though.
A lot better.
A lot better, and especially considering just like on paper. Let's look at it on paper here.
Mm-hmm.
Spirits Within has Alec Baldwin, Steve Buscemi, Donald Sutherland, Keith David, James, like all these
James Woods. That's right.
Mainstream actors. I don't know who the fuck's in this movie.
Anime voice actors.
Legit. Actors. But I'm saying, like, it's kind of crazy how, like, you'd think that on paper, oh, I'd be more interested in Spirits Within, or I would like Spirits Within more just because of actors.
Right.
And how, like, that isn't the case. I just find that fascinating.
Yeah,
both plots are not
these
great,
characters are more likable than that other movie was.
To be fair, they have a whole game to base off of.
Fair. I mean, you're going in wanting to like it just because
it's hard to tell without. Like, I wish I could delete everything I know about the game and then watch it, and maybe I could have a different opinion. But at least the action scenes in this were good enough that even if I don't know anything about the characters or the characters suck, whatever, at least the action scenes are cool. There was no cool action scenes in Spirits Within. There's nothing. Spirits Within was one of the worst movies I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And also the worst video game movie I've seen for sure. It's the bottom of the bottom.
Yep, I would say it's basically it's at the bottom, and Mortal Kombat Annihilation is right above it, trying to pull it up.
It's really trying. It's like somehow it is.
They're
it's
just
so low, but it is.
Yeah, this found the.
I will
mud
say
at
though,
the
we
bottom.
should have had Aki Ross though. They should have somehow had her in it because she was supposed to be the first digital actor or whatever.
Yeah. What if in one of these like shots of like just people walking around Edge City or Midgar or whatever, not her, but there's just a dude sitting on a bench reading that magazine.
Oh my god! Yeah.
The Maxim 2001.
Yeah, that
Hot
would
Women.
Clever.
She was on the cover. That's hilarious. If maybe that is. I mean, to be fair, do we know if that's the case? I feel like we would have found out on the internet, but
no, I don't think Aki Ross's IMDb page says that. So Still
Does she
time to
have
bring her
an
back.
IMDb?
Still time to bring her back. Hey,
They need a 4K re-release of that movie too. I own that on UMD.
I want a complete
as a
edition
joke.
of that.
Yeah, I feel like Alec Baldwin would like not want to remember that movie.
God, I just can't believe that movie exists. Every time I think about it, I'm like, holy fucking shit.
It has nothing to do with Final Fantasy. Just
It was
the name.
just a crappy sci-fi anime thing,
Yeah.
cartoon, whatever you want to call it.
Ugh. Let's not talk about that movie. Although I guess in a sense this is
I just wanted to talk about because
related.
It is related. It wasn't that far between when the
2001 versus 2005.
yeah. So I mean, that movie was so bad, but yet they're like, "Yup, we're going to do a Final Fantasy VII movie still."
Yeah,
The
yeah. They
animation
did
also
not
looks
dissuade
a lot
them.
better. 4-year
Oh,
difference.
100%. Yeah.
Big jump.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I like Cloud Swords. I don't know. This satisfied me as a fan of the game. Of like, I just want to see these characters do cool shit. Because put yourself back in the mindset of PlayStation 1, 1997, playing the game. You're seeing low polygon characters walking around doing stuff. Battle higher polygon counts. Most cutscenes aren't a CG thing. It is still just the low polygon characters walking around and talking and shit. There's a few CG cutscenes with no voicing. There's music playing. Maybe not even sound effects. So you don't really, and they're very far and few between. So like if that is all you got of that characters and stuff, and then you get to see this movie 8 years later, like that is very fulfilling and like awesome in and of itself as a fan wanting to see it, right? So it is just worth it for in that time frame alone. So I always kind of smile when I think about like, yes, like you get to see Cloud and Sephiroth actually fight in a CG, kind of giant cutscene thing, because you don't really see that in the game.
I had to look up like what the original Final Fantasy VII like cut scenes look like, just because like it's weird that like before Final Fantasy VII Remake came out, I feel like I've always known what Tifa looked like to the same quality of what she is now. But I don't know why. So maybe it must have been just like fan art or shit or some shit like that. But like now I'm looking at it, I'm like, okay, I can see like the jump in quality and like why that would be cool.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I need, super mega fans of something, getting to actually see what they always thought of in their heads.
And then Crisis Core, was that
That was the prequel PSP game that came out in 2008.
Okay.
It's not all that good in like
I'm just saying,
modern
I was
day looking at
the
it.
screenshots of like the cutscenes from it. I'm like, okay, I could kind of see more of not a jump from the movie, but just like in terms of video game quality. So I'm just looking
that
at,
game
like,
came out after the movie, but 100% like there's good things in that game for sure, and there's good story stuff in that game, but there's a lot of bullshit in that game.
I'm glad
story-wise.
that I want to say Barrett looked like trash in this fucking movie.
He did.
Though. I was so
He
disappointed.
did.
That's my guy. I love that he's a goddamn tank in Remake. Like he's
Yeah.
He's supposed to be bigger than like anyone could be. You know what I mean? I like that because he has a arm gun like a tank, or like a gun like when I think of a tank of a person, I think it's kind of cool that he has like he's not just physically a tank. He has a gun like a tank.
Yeah. He's like, you get out of the way. Yeah, not just to take hits, but also to deal. He could, on face value, be your heaviest hitter.
Yeah.
In that sense, yeah. Yeah, visually he looked awful. I mean, it makes me just wonder, hey, Nomura, do you know how to design black characters? You know what I mean? I joked when we watched the movie that like, oh, everyone's wearing the black leather stuff except for Barrett. Is it because he's black and they wanted to do a color swap thing? He's got some weird fishnet thing going on, and his gun looks worse. It looks super anime upgraded, but it looks worse. He's got cornrows, which isn't bad, but I like his old haircut better, Definitely much improved in 7 Remake. Obviously, going back to what the original outfits was, but then they kind of changed up those original outfits for a remake and made them a little bit better. They also got a Western man whose last name is Ferrari, which I love, to also be a character designer along with Nomura for Remake. So he had someone else to rein him in a bit and be like, hey, take those belts off. Stop drawing belts. Stop drawing the zippers. Let's work it back a bit,
I think in our we don't have like a ranking or anything, but I would just put it in like the lower to middle tier.
Yeah,
like, I'm not.
There's cool stuff in it, but overall, it's a very forgettable movie. It just has. It's based off something, and it is a. Well, that's the other thing too. Like, let me bring up our video game movies spreadsheet. Everything that we have seen thus far is an adaptation of something of a video game. This is a sequel to a video game. So that's different in that regard, right?
Okay, that's
everything's
true,
either
yeah.
just here is just the idea of the world making a movie out of it, or here is literally we're trying to just make that game in the movie. This is a sequel, so it's different in that regard. I don't know if we necessarily should be treating it differently. At the end of the day, it is a movie. Start, middle, end, 3 acts, characters, plot, themes. I guess the theme is don't give up. But that's kind of anime boring baseline, just don't give up. Believe in yourself. This is a sequel, and I feel like that's a little interesting. But at the end of the day, I do agree with you. It is at the highest it could be is just below halfway.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I feel like also once we keep going through that, there's gonna be a lot more above it, even if they're like not great.
And maybe even a lot more below it too, but who knows? We haven't seen them yet. We got some potential stinkers on the horizon. I'm excited for this new era of video game movies.
Yeah.
It's exciting.
But there's also movies like Doom that I'm like, that could be like Resident Evil level, where I'm like, it could be okay, or maybe I'll like it. Who knows? We'll see.
Yeah.
But then there's stuff like Dead or Alive or whatever, where I'm like, it's probably gonna be awful. It's gonna be terrible.
Yeah. But you'll see.
It's gonna start smelling in here. It's gonna be real bad.
Yes. Yeah, there's going to be films that also didn't have box offices, or no, films that did have box offices that are so low that this movie that we watched for today's episode would have easily beaten 10 times. And this movie's not all that amazing. But you'll get to see what other movies we do in the future on this very podcast feed. The Sonic Movie Show airs every week. You can follow the show on Twitter at Sonic Movie Show. You can follow me on Twitter at Ethan Absolutely, and Devin is on Twitter at CURSONA Fun. I almost said YouTube, but you know what? It's episode 100 something, so I should be done by that by now. And yeah, we'll see you next week. Goodbye, and I will never be another memory.
Looks like today we're clocking out early.
That was a good quote. And I thought they were going to blow themselves up.
I wanted to use that for the end here, because that made more sense than using it at the beginning. Unless we were just ending the episode at 5 minutes. We liked it. Bye.
See ya.